Welcome to yet another episode of Open Door Policy, your favorite Unleash the Gospel podcast, where each week we talk with a different guest from the Archdiocese of Detroit who is living the message of Unleash the Gospel. And today we are blessed to sit down with Father Mario Amore. How are you, Father?
I'm doing well today. Thanks for having me.
And of course, Danielle Center. How are you, Danielle?
Hey, friends. I appreciated that cut against Father Mario's podcast in our
wasn't
intro.
meant to be a dig, but
Okay.
we'll talk about his podcast in a minute. But
Yeah.
Danielle, what's God doing in your life?
Maybe this is an obvious one, but I love summertime. I love everything about it. Warm things, sunshine, leaves on trees. So that's my grace, is just being a part of this. How about you?
Yeah, so masses are starting back up after what seemed like forever not having
Dude,
public mass.
honestly.
And it has been such a grace, even with the different ways we're kind of, with masks and fewer people and social distancing and all that. It's just been a real joy to be with people around God's altar. So super grateful for that.
Hey, Father Mario, you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Number 1. What was your first job?
My dad's restaurant.
What is the most beautiful church you have visited?
I don't know. Sweetest Heart of Mary in Detroit. St.
Nice.
Aloysius first, but then Sweetest Heart.
Sweet. What is the most recent song that you had stuck in your head?
Don't Stop Believing. I was thinking about something from the Seminary, and that song came in my mind.
Good. In which fictional world would you like to live?
Narnia.
What is your favorite breakfast food?
Bacon.
What was the location of one of your most powerful encounters with God?
A chapel in Irene, South Dakota.
Nice. What Bible verse has recently struck you?
When Jesus says, "Did not come to be served, but to serve."
Have you ever met anyone famous?
Yes. Amy Grant. She's kind of famous.
Yeah. Who is your hero?
My hero is my grandfather.
What is the favorite book you've ever read?
The Great Divorce. C.S. Lewis.
The Great Divorce is a novel by the British author C.S. Lewis, and based on a theological dream vision of his in which he reflects on the Christian conceptions of heaven and hell.
What is your favorite item of clothing?
Favorite item of clothing?
Mm-hmm.
Shorts.
Okay. Perfect. That's it.
Awesome.
Great work.
No, that was great, Father. So tell us a little bit about this place, Irene, South Dakota. I think I know where this is, but tell us your experience there.
Yeah, so like you, Father Steve, when we were in the seminary, did a 30-day silent retreat at a place called Broomtree in Irene, South Dakota. It's literally the middle of nowhere. And so it's this retreat house with kind of farms as far as the eye can see. And so when you're on retreat for 30 days and you're in silence, you should be praying basically the whole time. But there are certain hours a day kind of dedicated to more intense prayer, I guess. So it was just one of the days in there, one among the 30, was doing a holy hour, early evening time, probably about 4 or 5 o'clock. I was just sitting alone in kind of this empty farm chapel church. It had a beautiful crucifix in it, and not much was happening during that time. But just kind of in this moment, my eyes kind of drifted up towards the crucifix, and kind of in the silence and sort of in the dryness of the prayer too, kind of the Lord worked. And I just remember him speaking to my heart, and the words that were used, or the words that I heard, were, "Let me be more for you." As I kind of thought about it and prayed about it, kind of my image and relationship with the Lord up until that point was just kind of, a shaped piece of wood in the form of a man on a wooden crucifix, and this was a symbol of faith. Definitely not as much depth there as the Lord wanted, or that I wanted. And so that just became a moment of deeper encounter, like uh, enter into a true relationship with me. Give me the time that I want with you. And yeah, so that was a moment that sort of changed my faith life and my relationship with the Lord.
And, the 30-day silent retreat is exactly for that, right? It's meant to kind of put us out of our normal routine and to go very deep in our relationship with the Lord. And so, you talk about Irene being the middle of nowhere. I think of it as like it's where people from the middle of nowhere go to get away from people, right? It is so unpopulated that it's a great place to encounter the Lord. Um, what kind of restaurant did your dad have?
My dad had an Italian restaurant, of course. So he was in business with his father. And so it took kind of different forms throughout their business life together. So it was in different places and kind of specialized in different things at different times. But yeah, those are kind of some of the fondest memories of my childhood is being with my dad, going with my dad to work, being with him in the restaurant. I think
So what
that,
did you do? Like just a bunch of odd jobs, or were you like the guy who helped make the spaghetti or wipe down tables? What'd you do?
yeah, I mean, there was kind of a little bit of everything. It was a family affair. So my grandmother worked there, my grandfather was there, my mom was there. And so kind of, as a kid, kind of whatever they were doing, and that they kind of invited me into. So I mean, I would bust tables sometimes. I remember, I mean, I was like probably, I don't know, sixth or seventh grade, and like I waited some tables, and it was probably against labor laws and things like that. But those were
But it's
fun.
a
Those were
family
great memories.
affair.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, a little bit of everything though.
Did they have bacon at the restaurant?
Of course, always.
And tell us about meeting Amy Grant.
So when I was at Our Lady of Sorrows, so they do a big prayer breakfast. It's usually I want to say like in the springtime, maybe May or something. But there's this big prayer breakfast in the area, and it was held at Oakland University. And so one of the parishioners is like in like the official fan club of Amy Grant. I didn't know that those actually existed, but they do. So she's like in the fan club. She goes to like meetings and things like that. So anyway, Amy Grant was one of the featured speakers at it. So uh, she got us a table, and we were like right up front because we were with someone who was in the.
An official fan.
That's right. So we met her. We met her afterwards. Got some pictures, and then we were on our way.
Danielle, have you met someone famous? We've asked a number of people this question. Have you met someone?
I think I might have said this. I was in the Salt Lake City airport and I saw Tan France walk through. He's like he's known for fashion on a television show. And I saw him. I knew who he was. He was like glowing. He looked beautiful. And I wanted to say hi because I'm like that. But also the shirt that I was wearing had a bleach stain on it. And I knew it. And I was like, he'll be able to tell, even though I'm wearing a sweater. So I didn't. How about
Uh,
you?
I met Wayne Gretzky. That was pretty awesome at Gordie Howe's funeral, which was here in Detroit a number of years ago. And Wayne Gretzky, the second greatest hockey player ever, was there, and it was a great honor to meet him there.
You know what? I am a little bit embarrassed to ask this question, but I'm just going to own this. Who's the first best?
Oh, Gordie Howe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was the two best hockey players in
Yeah,
one
it was like
spot.
LeBron being at Jordan's funeral to,
Okay.
talk about it in terms of basketball,
Okay.
This
Talk about it in terms of soccer.
it was like Messi being at Pele's funeral.
Okay.
I
Good.
don't even know if
Good.
that's right. Anyway, Father Mario, thanks for indulging our rapid fire questions.
You're very welcome.
Father Mario, we did mention that you are a priest. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about where you are right now and where you're serving, how you got there, that kind of thing?
Sure, yeah. So I am currently serving at St. Aloysius in downtown Detroit. So that is the parish. And then we also have what's known as St. Aloysius Neighborhood Services, which is an outreach center out of the parish. And also I oversee St. Dominic Outreach, which is in the Wayne State area or Midtown Detroit. And so, yeah, I've been there it'll be a year in July. And just experiencing God in many different ways, and all the different people, in the way that we worship together, and those who come to us in need as well.
How did you hear about St. Aloysius, and what was your process like beginning to work there?
Yeah, so I became acquainted with St. Aloysius several years ago in two different ways. So when I was probably in my early 20s, I worked with a Catholic organization who sends young people into different cities during the summer. So it's called Young Neighbors in Action. So I was on the program staff for them. I was their music and prayer coordinator for the week when the teenagers came into town. So St. Aloysius was actually one of the work sites during the week. So I would go down and visit the work sites with the other team members and visit the teenagers who were there. Just a great spirit about the place and all the good work that they did. And then also, I mentioned that I was doing kind of prayer and music for them. I'm a musician as well. And so I would also help out with music at different churches on the weekends when they needed someone to fill in. So St. Aloysius, a few times, was one that I would go and play and sing for on the weekend.
So before you entered seminary, you were a musician. Did you grow up playing music, or is that a part of your life from an early age?
Actually, no. So my brother, he started taking piano lessons probably when he was probably like fourth or fifth grade. And then, so he's more formally trained, and I am not. So I just kind of fake it as I go
Good.
along.
You fake it well, but because I remember in seminary, you would often play for, when the director of music had the day off, or for certain events, and so you're not just faking it, right? You kind of know what you're doing.
Well, yeah, I can fake it. I can fake it.
Good for you.
But
So you've been at St. Aloysius for about a year. In that time, how have you seen God work? How have you felt yourself been stretched? What's going on spiritually?
Well, it was my first assignment as what we call an administrator. So basically functioning as the pastor without the official title of pastor. That'll come this July. But previous to being at St. Aloysius, I was at two other large suburban parishes. And I really loved those communities, and I liked being there. But even when I was there, I'd always felt just in my prayer that God was calling me to city ministry in one form or another. And I actually felt that call while I was in the seminary, as well as I was kind of thinking and dreaming about what priesthood might look like for me, or what God wanted it to be for me. So anyway, while I was at those suburban parishes, getting a lot of experience, working with great pastors and being involved in schools, yeah, I still had this just this desire on my heart to want to be in the city, and to have more of a connection to the poor. But when I was thinking about it and when I was praying about it, it always was sort of like, well, most of the parishes in the city, or many of them, are run by religious orders, and I'm a diocesan priest. So I'm attracted to city life as well. So I always thought it would be cool to live in New York or Chicago or something like that, or downtown Detroit, and specifically downtown. Most of the parishes are run by order. So I thought, well, that's a great thought to have, but probably never going to happen. So I was at St. Hugo in Bloomfield Hills, and I was there for 6 months. And a call came right after Christmas and said, "Well, the Archbishop wants to meet with you." And that's it, either really good or really not good.
I was going to ask, were you worried?
Yeah. I was. Father Grau was very kind though, and said, "Don't worry, you're not in trouble." I wasn't expecting at all to move again because I'd only been there for
Right.
6 months. So I mean, that's what I thought. I was like, well, he's not going to ask me to move, so I'm not really sure. So anyway, I met with the Archbishop, and he said that the Franciscans were no longer able to staff St. Aloysius, and so he thought I would be a good fit there. Another cool part of the story is that he said, I'm not asking you. I'm not asking for you to give me an answer right now. I know it's a lot to ask, and so you can pray about it. Um, and as I was sitting there with him, I said, actually, Archbishop, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do that. I thank you for the confidence you have in me, but I want to let you know, like, this is what I have been praying for, so I can tell you that
Mm.
yes.
I
Um,
don't need more time. I am ready
that's
to
it.
go now.
I'm ready.
Mm.
And then just kind of the cherry on top here. So that was a Saturday, and I was leaving that evening with the choir from St. Hugo. They were going to Rome to sing at St. Peter's for the Feast of the Epiphany. And so I was going with them. So I went, and I couldn't talk with anyone about this because it wasn't public yet. So I was sitting on the plane, for 9 hours or whatever, and I didn't watch any movies. I didn't listen to any music or anything. I just thought about being at St. Aloysius. And so anyway, the first place that we visited when we got there, the first place that we had mass was the Church of St. Ignatius.
Mm.
In the Church of St. Ignatius is an altar dedicated to St. Aloysius, and so that was the first place that I prayed in Rome. So it's just a special story how kind of how God did work through all of it. Yeah, my time at St. Aloysius has been really really great. It's a wonderful community. The Franciscans have done a wonderful job really connecting the community to service to the poor, and so we're champions of that down there. And yeah, just really dedicated individuals, and the parish is growing because of the many people who are coming and moving and working downtown. And so it's a place that's ripe for evangelization, and it's a great place to be. And I'm really find myself blessed that I'm able to serve there.
So we'll talk about that in a minute because I do want to get to like this moment being in the city of Detroit and kind of being a pastor for the first time and all that. But if we could just spend another minute, Father Mario, to talk about your vocation and how you kind of discerned your vocation to the priesthood. Did you think about it when you were younger? Did it come a little bit later in high school or college for you, or just tell us a little bit about your own discernment to the priesthood.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't something that I thought about as a kid. So when I tell my vocation story, my family is probably just a very typical Catholic family. My parents, sent us to Catholic school. We were blessed to be able to go to Catholic school. We went to mass every Sunday. We prayed before meals. But that was kind of the extent of our prayer together. I'm sure my parents prayed for my brother and I often, but we were never the family who kind of sat around dad's chair and prayed the rosary together. That just wasn't our experience. It wasn't until high school that I started really kind of getting more involved in the life of my parish. So I mentioned my brother's a musician, so he actually got a job at a very young age as the music director at our home parish, which is Our Lady of the Woods in Woodhaven. And so I would kind of accompany him, and I would just kind of be around the church office and being just in the church and around the priest. And then I got more involved in the youth group. And so it was kind of at that moment that I really felt that service in the church God was calling me to in one way or another. I was fairly confident that it was probably the priesthood, but um, I guess I didn't want to admit that right away. And
Mhm.
so I took kind of an odd step, which most, I guess, high school students uh, don't do these days. But I actually enrolled at the seminary as a guest student in my last semester of high school. And so I took my first class then.
Oh, when you were still in high school.
Yeah. Yep.
Whoa.
So I had to meet with, at that
Good for
time,
you.
Father Laginus was, now Monsignor Laginus. He was the dean of studies. And so I had to meet with him. And, I'm like, I don't know, 17-year-old high school student. Yeah, because I sort of, I guess in my heart, I knew at one time, sooner or later, I would enter the seminary. So I kind of wanted to start to get ahead.
Yeah.
So I started taking classes. I took classes for 2 years and then decided to apply to the seminary, was accepted, ready to go, and then kind of got cold feet. It was one of those situations where you always think the grass is greener on the other side. And I thought, well, maybe I haven't really discerned marriage and family enough. So I stepped back for a while, then went kind of back into doing music in the church. Did that for 2 more years, but the call never went away. God kept nudging, and so it was sort of a moment of frustration where I said to myself, "You either have to go and check it out, or you need to just forget about it because you're driving yourself crazy."
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay, God, I'm going to apply again." And like at this point, like I did this once and they accepted me and I said no. So I don't even know if they're going to look at the application again. I'm going to do it. I'm going to fill it out and we'll see what happens. So they accepted me. They took a chance. And here we are
And
now.
just for anyone who might be listening, like what does the application process look like, right? If someone is curious, what does that feel
Pretty
like?
simple, right? It's like a one-pager and
Not
No,
quite.
it's not.
Yeah, I mean, there's a series of questions and things, kind of that you have to talk about on paper. It's a kind of we say it's kind of a mutual discernment always between the
Right.
man and also the seminary. So you meet with different priests from the seminary with the vocation director. There's paperwork that you have to do. There's psychological evaluations. There's physicals and all those types of medical things that you need to do. And then you kind of have people vouch for you, members of your family. Why would Mario make a good priest, or your parish priest, and then other people that know you, your friends. So it's a process for sure.
And you got to do it twice, right?
I did. I think I probably copy and pasted some of it though, the second time around.
You're like,
think
my
you
name
heard
is
it.
the same. Yeah.
So I know we got to get out of this segment, but Father Mario, if you can think back to entering seminary, one of the questions I want to ask you is, what was the biggest surprise when you entered seminary? You had taken classes there. I'm assuming you knew a lot about kind of you knew a bunch of seminarians and you knew the kind of the layout of the place, but did anything particularly surprise you when you started to live the life of a seminarian?
I think the community, the brothers, the brotherhood that you kind of come into and that you become a part of,
Yeah.
is, I mean, when you think about the seminary, when you don't live in the seminary, you think about the seminary as kind of a stuffy place and kind of everybody's just praying all the time and really kind of stiff and not very interesting. But it's not that at all. You do become a part of a community of brothers. And I describe it sort of as a holy frat house. It's a good place to be. I mean, and so, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the community.
Amen. Thanks, Father Mario. So, Father Mario, you are my pastor when I go to work. You're the pastor of the area that oversees the chancery, kind of downtown's pastor. Tell me what it was like for the first time going from an associate to being a pastor, where, I imagine, never having been a pastor myself, little pity party over here. But anyway,
Wow.
I imagine you get this big chain of keys, and tell me what that was like the first time, being a pastor.
Yeah. Speaking of keys, St. Aloysius is a key to every single door has a different key. That was the most frustrating part
True.
of my transition of
Oh,
being.
Danielle, you worked there, right? So you know this
I
church.
did. I had so many keys. And you know what? St. Anne was the same way. I think it's just like ancient churches that have been locked changed like 400 times. Yeah.
You literally did have a big ring of keys then.
I did. Yep. And if the listeners have ever been to St. Aloysius, they know that. So we have the most unique church building in the country.
Ooh.
And it's true. Yep. So it's 3 levels, and it's called a well, which is basically a hole in the middle of the church so that you can see all 3 levels of the church from the altar. So the altar is separated by this well, and then there's more seating on the main level. But anyway, when I got all these keys, I got locked on the wrong side of the well, I guess, because there's these gates. And like my mom was on one side because they came to like plant flowers and things, and I was on the other side, and I literally didn't have the right key. I don't remember how I got out of there, but that was like the first day of being pastor at St. Aloysius. But it's been all uphill from there. It was pretty awesome, making that transition. The one thing that priests learn very, very quickly is that when you're an associate pastor, it's always like, I can't wait for the days where I can be the pastor. And like older priest friends of mine would say like, just wait, like enjoy these days now, because right now, like you're kind of living large. Like you don't have to make any of the big decisions, and most everybody likes you and all that kind of stuff. But when you become the pastor, then all the decisions fall to you. And then you remember those days when most everybody liked you. And it was a little bit easier. It is a real joy just being able to envision like where I feel God, you know, is calling me to lend my gifts to this community and working with them to discern how we do unleash the gospel downtown, how we reach out to the many different people who make downtown their home. We're unique in that St. Aloysius has always been known as a service church, not necessarily Christian service, although that's a part of what we do, but a service church in the sense of we are there for people for kind of the different movements of their week, I guess. And so during the week, we serve a specific population for Mass. It's the people who work down there. And we also serve those who come to us in need. And then on the weekends, we serve many people who come to us from the suburbs who have found a home at St. Aloysius, a church in the city. But that is beginning to shift a little bit because downtown is becoming residential. So we're learning what that means to be, a true parish with people who do live and want to be invested more than just at a certain point in the week. Although we do continue to reach out to all those different people.
Was there anything when you started there, like what was one of the great joys? You talked about being the guy who's got to make the decisions and kind of the buck stops with you. What was kind of a joy of the spiritual fatherhood of being a new pastor?
I think the generosity of people. I have, firsthand knowledge of all the different people who support, especially the different outreach ministries that we do, and so the many benefactors who will send in donations month after month, and I'm really edified by those people who I know, struggle financially, but will send in sometimes $2, sometimes $5, and just I'm always very moved by that they are so convicted in the work that the church does and is called to do, and they want to be a part of it in any way that they can. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is just seeing how dedicated people are to the church, especially a church in the city. Most churches in the city are smaller communities, and so there's people really are a family, and they really look forward to gathering together to celebrate Mass as a family. And so I find a lot of joy in that and being part of that, a community life that might be kind of missed in some of the larger parishes. Not always, but sometimes.
But everyone would know everyone there, right? I mean, it's, as you said, it's kind of a tight-knit community that people would really get to know each other, and
Right.
you would get to know everyone.
Exactly. And that's what makes it, it's a very hospitable parish too. And so because everybody knows everybody, when somebody that we don't know comes, it's sort of a receiving line for them, a receiving line of welcome, which
Right.
I'm always really proud of as well.
Yeah.
So you came from a large, wealthy suburban parish, right?
Correct.
Where do you see maybe disconnect, and where do you see places where bridges can be built, right? Because we're all the same church community. So where do you wish that there was more collaboration and dialogue?
Yeah, I think what separates us the most is just the resources, and there are you mentioned that I did come from I did serve at one of the wealthier parishes in the diocese, but they were also a parish who tithes, even to this day. Shout out to Monsignor Toko at St. Hugo. He's made it a part of his the life of the parish to tithe their income. And so when I was an associate there, I would see and I would sign the checks for all the different organizations that they support. And so that bridge was there. That financial bridge was there with that parish specifically. What we need to work on, though, is not just the financial resources, but the human resources, getting people into the city, getting people into real service, not just supporting financially, but also kind of meeting our brothers and sisters who are in need. And there are I don't want to say that that's not being done at all, because it is, but
Right.
and that's what I hear from suburban communities, that they do want to give their parishioners the opportunity to do that. And so it's on our part making that platform available for people, and that's something that we're going to be working on here in the near future.
I think it's interesting because there's also like something that I encountered when I was working in a city parish was like well-meaning people who would do what I would call, like, I don't know, maybe like missionary tourism, right? We can say that, right? Like they'd call and be like, "Hi, I want to help at this day, at this time, and do this thing." And it's like I want to show up at 10 a.m. on Tuesday and do a soup kitchen. And it's like, well, our soup kitchen's in the evening because people here work. So there was like a disconnect, right, between being helpful where it was. And I've been thinking about all of this through like the George Floyd stuff. I think one thing that is really important is, like, frankly, long-term accompaniment. And that's scary, right? That's super, it's like, oh my gosh, commitment. Who wants it? But I think that, financial support is super key, but there's also the importance of, like, ministry is so much about showing up, right? Being present, hanging out with people, listening to their stories. So I know you guys do a great job at that, but it's something, I don't know, it's something that I'm thinking about too a lot at this time.
We want to give people the chance, like I mentioned, to get their hands dirty. It's not just about coming and doing an act, but it's about establishing some sort of relationship with people, and letting, like, people. What we find downtown is people want to know and need to know that they're loved and that they're cared about, and we can do that on a certain level in a limited way, but our goal is to be able to do that even better. And so
Right.
we need people to help us in that. And so many people are so very generous to us. God has really blessed us, especially over this during this time of pandemic. I mean, people have really come out of the woodwork to support us, and we so greatly appreciate that. But there's always ways in which, again, we need those volunteers and those human resources to help us in our mission.
Yeah.
So, Father Mario, let me ask you, the city of Detroit, especially your area around St. Aloysius, has been changing over the last 5 years. Like you mentioned this, a lot more kind of young people moving into the redeveloped apartments and condos and townhouses in that area. You've been there a little over a year. What opportunities do you see, like within your parish kind of boundary or around that, for that kind of bringing together people in the city who have lived there a long time, mostly African American, and then a newer kind of generation, maybe people more your age who grew up in the suburbs or other places and have moved into the city. How do you see that playing out at St. Al's?
I think again, the pandemic has bore some fruit for us. It has been a time of grace because we do have the younger people as part of our parish and who want to be involved or who are checking us out. And we know that for young adults, young people, especially, one of the ways in which they want to be get more active in their faith is through outreach. So through some sort of form of Christian service. So when the pandemic began, I immediately reached out to them because on Washington Boulevard, or in the immediate vicinity of St. Aloysius, there are more than 800 senior citizens. So there are several senior citizen residences on Washington Boulevard. And so we see them, as every parish should, whether they're registered or not, whether they're Catholic or not, as our parishioners. And so they know that they can come to us we have a full-time nurse, we offer food. And so whatever they need, they're able to come to us. And so as word gets out, those numbers are beginning to increase. But anyway, the real way that we're able to connect people was to pair one of the younger people with one of the senior citizens. So I have people, who are calling and checking up on them, who are going grocery shopping for them. Some of them have met for socially distanced walks. And now what's really beautiful to see is that these senior citizens are starting to reach back out and checking on the young adults. And so
that is so sweet.
Yeah, it's like the stories are, I have several stories about those kind of relationships being established, and which benefits our community, obviously, because it benefits not only the physical community that we're in, but also the parish community too. Because when everybody is back at Mass together, those relationships have been formed, even though we've all been away from each other.
Can you share one of your favorite stories with us?
Yeah, one of them actually was somebody who works with Father Steve. So Laura is one of the associate superintendents. She lives downtown, and she was the one who was calling in to check on one of the senior citizens. And that senior asked her if she wanted to meet up for a walk, and they did that. And then again, the senior citizen keeps calling and checking on her, and we'll leave her little messages on her voicemail, and she shares those with me. So just really sweet.
That is really sweet.
We'll have to have Laura on here sometime because she moved from Nebraska here to Detroit and moved downtown. And it's just it's been wonderful to see someone who doesn't know the city of Detroit through, to see it through her eyes as kind of a new person moving into the city and seeing kind of the beautiful parts, when obviously nationally Detroit has kind of a negative perception. And so that I love that story, partly because I've loved to see kind of Laura fall in love with this city.
Yeah. Coming soon. to a podcast near you. That's like a threat. We should warn her. You know what, Father? As we come to a close, we usually ask our guest if they have any closing words or something to share with the listeners. Would you be so kind?
Absolutely. There's a lot that's obviously going on in our country, in our world right now, and in our city. And just having been downtown again for almost a year, it's such a beautiful place to be, and it's very peaceful. It's a neighborhood feeling. At least that's what I have. Kind of now being part of the community, kind of being the priest in the community. People are so very kind, and they're looking for to love and to be loved. And so I invite anybody who would like down, not just to St. Aloysius. Obviously, you're always welcome, but just to come down and see what's happening in the city, see the changes that are being made for the better, see the growth, and also see what we're called to continue to be a part of to change, because the Catholic Church has to be a presence there, and I'm happy that I can be a part of that, and I invite you to be a part of it too.
Hey, so we're not going to let that be the last word, because I told you we would talk about your podcast for a minute. And
All
so
right.
just tell our listeners about your podcast and how they can hear it.
Sure. So the podcast is called Certifiably Catholic, because all three of us on it are baptized. And so we thought that would be a good name for it, because we racked our brains about it.
Yeah, that's
great. Figured it out. So I'm on with Mary Wilkerson and Mike Chamberlain. So they were drafted for the Eyes on Jesus podcast too. I'm not bitter about it, but
yeah, I was going to ask, do you feel left out, or
I support
okay?
them. But no, it's just, again, very conversational on what's happening in the world and a Catholic perspective on it. So from a perspective, we say, of stay-at-home mom, a Catholic priest, that's me, and a married man who works for the church. And so we try to give just kind of our thoughts, opinions on things. And we've all been friends for a while. And so it's always a fun time when we're able to get together. So we've been doing it about once a month. It's about time to do one again. And you can find it everywhere that you can find podcasts.
Check it out. I enjoy it very much. So thanks, Father Mario, for being an awesome guest.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm so grateful to Father Mario Amore for being on Open Door Policy, sharing with us his own faith journey, his journey to the priesthood, and how God is leading him as pastor of St. Aloysius in downtown Detroit.
If you liked this episode, please share it with your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, your Trader Joe cashier. You can also leave us a review on iTunes. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our handle is @OpenDoorDetroit. Help us unleash the gospel. Open Door Policy was produced by Ron Pangborn and the creative team of the Archdiocese of Detroit.
Any questions you have about it?
Is that it? Are we done?
I'm Father Steve Poulos with Danielle Center.
And this has been another episode of Open Door Policy.